Mo.com. Welcome, welcome. Well, we start off the work week with a nice 9-game basketball slate here. Dave Lochran, Adam Scher. How you
There we
doing,
go.
pal?
Doing good, man. I think that's the first time ever.
It might be. Two things. One, the comment that somebody left was hilarious. Basically saying the grammar police in Lafayette can't get Adam's last name right every day. You're right. My brother-in-law, well, soon to be brother-in-law. I think I told you this. His last name is Schaar. It is pronounced Shar. So It's like natural inclination to say it that way. No excuses. But
I mean, and for me, like, I don't even care enough to correct you. By the time I finished high school, I was so tired of teachers and people asking me how to pronounce my name that it was basically just like, however you said it is fine. Right. I really don't give a shit.
Well, that's what I was going to say. How many years, 2.5, 3 years have we been doing shows together now, and you still never said anything?
Yeah, no, I didn't care. I was fine. Just, I don't know if you had ever noticed or heard, but every time I do a pod with Dan, we would end up making fun of you for it. But
yeah, I know. He mentioned that.
Yeah.
Well, he basically talked, because Dan's horrible at pronouncing player names. I mean, He calls Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? and I know that you guys had a laugh with that. But the other day when I DM'd you about the comment, I was like, it's pronounced share, right? And you said, well, sharer. Yeah, but pretty much say, like, I know how it's pronounced and I still don't get it right.
Right.
That's even worse. But from now on, it's Dave Lochran and Adam Scher on a deeper dive. Let's get it started. This is actually, I don't know where you're at on it. This is kind of a fun slate. And I say this because while there are a few guys that are going to be like uber chalk, specifically Jabari Parker on FanDuel and maybe a few others here, there are also spots where there is some bad chalk as well. And I think there are some good ways to get away from the field in some of these spots. We'll get to them throughout the show. Where do you stand on tonight's slate? About an hour or what do we have? 2 hours and 10 minutes before lock here.
No, I'm right there with you. I think it's a pretty fun one. And I haven't looked at our ownership projections yet, but just by going through the slate, excluding Jabari Parker on FanDuel, there haven't really been any players where I look at them and I'm just like, I don't know how to get away from this. Maybe minimum price chase on Randall being an exception too. But just out of, like the mid-range and expensive guys, there's a lot of plays that I like. And it makes it so, without looking at the ownership projections, I don't know which ones we have projected high, but I'm pretty confident that I can find a pivot to whoever those people are.
For sure. One guy that there definitely are pivots, like in this price point, there definitely are pivots, but has been tough and will be tough again for me to get away from is Dennis Smith Jr. And I don't know where you stand on him, but we'll kick it off with this game, which kind of allows us to segue perfectly into this 7 p.m. start. By the way, we're glad to have you guys with us as always. Thanks for tuning in. Hang out with us till 6 o'clock here. We've got Cleveland. Cleveland's favored, 1.5 points, 209 total. Two of the worst teams in basketball, no question. Two slower paced teams as well. But we'll start with the road team and the Knicks. Dennis Smith Jr. got into a little foul trouble last game, played 30 minutes. I expect to get him back up to 35 minutes again today. Looking at this backcourt, Moutier is out. Ntilikina, we know, is out and will be held out till after the All-Star break. So yeah, you've got your Kadeem Allens and your Triers and your Dotsons and such, but there really isn't much resistance in the way of Smith getting back up to or over 35 minutes. And since he has joined the Mavericks, the first game we saw the minutes down, foul trouble there, and only 24 minutes or 26 minutes, whatever it was. But he's got 31.5% usage rate, 42% assist rate, 1.11 fantasy points per minute. And the teams that he's faced Toronto, he faced the Detroit Pistons twice, he faced Memphis. So it's not like he just went out and faced Brooklyn, Lakers, Atlanta, all these great pace-up spots, but he still managed to produce well, and I still don't think his price point reflects his production and his minutes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And there's a couple of ways that I think you can approach this because, you mentioned the rates that he has since going to the nominal with a 31% usage rate, the assist percentage up over 40%, rebounding percentage is at about 5.5%. If you use those numbers as his rates, he projects as a phenomenal play. That's obviously based on 3 or 4 games now. If you go back to the Mavericks and look at his numbers without Luka on the floor, he still projects as a great play with like a 26.5% usage rate, a 33% assist percentage, and an 8.5% rebounding percentage. Like no matter what set of numbers you take for Dennis Smith, as long as you're trying to get it to resemble as close to his current situation with the Knicks, there's really no way that it puts you in a spot where you don't like him. The rebound chances have been there for him. I actually think he's been underperforming a bit in that department, probably overperforming a little bit in the way of assists, but that's not to say that he doesn't still have a really high assist percentage, and he should still get all the usage that he wants. So I'm with you. It's a great spot against Cleveland. The price tag is slowly coming up, but it started out just so much lower than it should have been that's not really a concern.
For sure. What about the rest of this team, Adam? I went on a rant about Smith, so I'll let you take over here. We've got Dotson, who I think you and I both expected to get more minutes once Wesley Johnson was released. That didn't happen. And then, of course, you have Kevin Knox, who, look, the numbers have not been great, but he's playing 35 minutes or more every single night. And his usage is second behind Dennis Smith since the Porzingis, since that, big blockbuster trade. And then you've got Hezonja starting over Noah Vonleh with DeAndre Jordan at the 5. Any interest in guys like Kevin Knox here against a Cleveland team that allows the highest efficiency in the league, despite playing at a low pace?
Not a ton. I mean, it's someone that if I get to him, I think it's okay. But there are players I prefer. Like you have Tim Hardaway Jr. at the same price tag on DraftKings. I'd rather go to Hardaway. It's just he doesn't contribute in the way of peripherals. Like he doesn't rebound, he doesn't pick up assists. He plays a bunch of minutes, but if he's not shooting well, then those are pretty empty minutes. And since the Dennis Smith Jr. trade, he has a 22.9% usage rate. So it's not like he's out there putting up monster usage. He has been getting field goal attempts up in the mid to high teens. So it's good, but he just doesn't grade out as anything exceptional for me. And that's really the case for the rest of this team. I don't think DeAndre Jordan, where he's cheap on DraftKings and you can roster two centers, I wouldn't really want to go there because of the opportunity cost on FanDuel. I think that you can still project him for 28 or 29 minutes. He's dealt with a little bit of foul trouble, fouled out of one game. He's had a couple weird rotations. Hezonja, Vonleh, Trier, Dotson, like these guys all I have projected to play in the mid-20s in minutes. They're all cheap enough where in this matchup against Cleveland, it wouldn't be surprising if one of them has a good game, but good luck guessing which one it is. I have no idea. I certainly want to use groups with this New York team if, max entering and make sure that I don't, block myself out by having like Hezonja and Vonleh in the same lineup or something like that. But other than, secondary dart throws, there's not a whole lot that I like here outside of Dennis Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you. If I had to go to somebody else though, I think Kevin Knox is fine just because when you're playing that many minutes, the efficiency here tends to be higher. Now, the pace of play, obviously not something you love, but when you're getting upwards of, potentially 40 minutes in a close game, mind you, this last game against Toronto was decided by 5 points, and he's getting, say 18, 21 shots up, does Kevin Knox have the ability to put up big numbers here? Yeah, his peripherals, as you noted, they're not good. I mean, if Kevin Knox is not shooting well, you don't really have a shot. Like you just don't. But if he is against the Cleveland team that is dead last in field goal percentage allowed, 29th in 3-point percentage allowed, just god awful in all of these efficiency categories for opposing shoot first guys like Knox, I don't have a problem getting to him. But obviously, I'd want to limit the exposure because it's very possible that Kevin Knox could play 35 minutes and still finish with 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, I think a lot of it with Knox will come down to projected ownership for me. I know this morning we had him projected really highly. I'm trying to pull it up now, but I don't know
how
quickly.
I can tell you right now, we have him on DraftKings at 12% and FanDuel at 22. 22 is really high on Kevin Knox, but 11%, 12%, I'm not too concerned about. So
all right. Then yeah, he's dropped some since this morning, so I like him a little. I like him more than I did this morning. I could see getting into that like 10% range on him.
Yeah, it's certainly not me advocating on loading up on Kevin Knox, just at a decent price against Cleveland. A guy that's playing 35, 40 minutes that could get up 20 shots. You could do worse than that. Let's talk about Cleveland then, Adam. 1.5-point home favorites. We've seen Clarkson now since Burks and Hood have left. Clarkson's played 31 plus minutes in back-to-back games, which is encouraging. and that's with Brandon Knight playing 12 minutes in his debut for the Cavs, Dellavedova playing 24 and 23 minutes in his last 2 games respectively, and then Colin Sexton went from 38 minutes to 30 minutes in his last game and actually played in the fourth quarter, so that was not based on a blowout. Let's go ahead and take a look at this backcourt, because Clarkson's usage and even his assist rate, small sample, since this trade or since those guys were moved, has been pretty encouraging.
You can get Clarkson playing around 30 minutes, especially in a favorable matchup like we have here against the Knicks at a reasonable price tag. He's, a pretty good play. Over the last month, I have him with about a 28% usage rate, almost a 19% assist percentage. He's always been right around the fantasy point per minute producer, even going back to his time with the Lakers. So I think that as long as we can still pencil him in for close to 30 minutes, that he's in a pretty good spot here. And with Sexton's price tag getting really close to Clarkson's, I start to prefer Clarkson.
Yep, I was going to say the same thing. Like, it wasn't more than 4 days ago that Clarkson was $1,000 more expensive on DraftKings. Now he's $300 more expensive. Definitely makes a difference where they both have point guard eligibility. Clarkson at shooting guard as well. What about the rest of this team? Larry Nance has been very productive, but with Kevin Love expected back tonight, not necessarily sure how many minutes we're going to get from him. He played 6 minutes, 6 scheduled minutes in his return from a 3-month hiatus, if not more. And then you had Marcus Chris start at center in the following game with Kevin Love out on the second of a back-to-back, played 24 minutes. Larry Nance at the 4. What do you make of Nance, who's getting huge run and producing really quality fantasy production? What do you like, or if anything, against the Knicks?
Yeah, I love Nance here. It's scary because what did you say? Oh, yeah,
He will be popular.
Yeah, I think people have finally caught on after he was like 6% owned the first game and like 20 last slate. I think people have figured it out. Yeah. But he's just playing huge minutes. He played almost 34 minutes against the Wizards, lost a few minutes to a blowout there, played almost 38 minutes last game, and actually lost a couple minutes there also. So just, huge minutes here. You have Zizic, who's actually questionable as well. And without Tristan Thompson or Zizic on the floor this year, you have about a 1.15 DraftKings point per minute average from Nance. Over the last month, he's at 1.06 points per minute. It's a perfectly fine matchup here against the Knicks. DeAndre Jordan obviously makes it a little bit, it's worse than if it were like Enes Kanter out there, but still an inefficient shooting team and a poor defensive team. So I really like Nance here. He's easily my favorite player from Cleveland.
Yeah, no question. And I don't know, how many minutes do you think he plays at the 5 here?
I have him at 34 minutes.
At center?
Yeah.
Okay, you think all of his minutes are going to come at center?
Yeah, I assume
that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think all of them would, but regardless, he's going to play a lot of minutes there anyway. What do you think the starting lineup will be here?
The same as it was 2 games ago. The first game they started.
Yeah. And then I guess Marcus Chris. Well, the thing is, I don't know how many minutes Kevin Love plays. I mean, he played 6. What is he going to play, 12 here or something?
Yeah, I have him at 16.
That's what you have him at 16?
Yeah.
Okay. With how much they had him in bubble wrap that first game back, not that it really makes a big difference, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that maybe double that.
I basically have him at 6 just because I didn't really want to go any higher than like 20 or 22 with Chris.
Anything else for Cleveland?
A bunch of secondary stuff like Chris and Nwaba is just cheap tournament value if you're playing 150 lineups, but that you probably shouldn't have tons of.
And Marcus Chris is just such a terrible rebounder, man. It's almost impressive how bad he is at rebounding. Like, one of the big things is just always his unwillingness to box guys out. God, I won't even get into it. It's been a little bit better recently, but with the amount of minutes I expect to see from him. Now, he is the dead minimum, so I guess even if you had him projected at like 23 minutes, you could do a lot worse. But like you said, nobody you're jamming into lineups. All right, let's talk about the Pacers and Charlotte. Pacers 5-point favorites at home, 215.5 total. I had mentioned to you earlier today that I am patiently waiting news on Miles Turner because, right now, projected ownership on Miles Turner, and I'm not sure how much of this has to do with him being questionable, right? It could be a lot. I don't know. But we have him at 2% on DraftKings, and then on FanDuel, we have him at 6%. But on DraftKings, he's $6,800. He faces a Charlotte team that has been blocked more, that has had their shot blocked more than any team in the entire league. We talked about this when he faced the Clippers, and he racked up 6 blocks in the game, had a really solid effort, and only played 27 minutes in the blowout. Each of his last 3 games have been shortened by a blowout, but he played 30-plus minutes in 3 straight games before that. So if he plays and it stays close, that's not a concern. His per-minute production since the start of this month is at like 1.36 fantasy points per minute. And Charlotte, with Cody Zeller, they're better offensively by 4 points per 100 possessions. So a marked difference there. But defensively, nothing changes. And they actually play at a faster pace, 2 possessions per 100 or per 48 with Zeller on the floor. So I'm just pointing it out right now. If Miles Turner is active, I really like him if he's only going to be 2 to 3 or 4% owned. To me, there's a lot of upside. There's a lot of value in a $6,600 price point. Talk to me about where you stand on the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. It's a deep center position today. So That's really the worst thing I can say about Turner, because if you look at the recent games, for one, he's still playing really well. He's averaged about 1.15 fantasy points per minute without Oladipo on the floor this season. He's been playing really well on both ends recently. And so the game logs look good as far as what he's actually produced. But then if you look at it on a per minute basis, it's even better. But if you're just looking at the minutes, like, it's easy to get scared away. But you look last game, he played 22 minutes. That game was a blowout where he also was hurt early in the third quarter. So he spent part of the third quarter in the locker room. Game before that was a blowout against the Clippers where he played 27 minutes. The game before that was when they beat the Lakers by 42. It's just games that have gotten out of hand. He's still on pace to play 30 to 32 minutes in competitive games. And if I project him for 31 minutes here in the spot, I get him as a pretty good play.
Me too. And by the way, if he sits, I don't think we need to spend much time talking about Domantas Sabonis.
I think Sabonis is fine regardless.
Of course. At 5,700. And what is he on FanDuel? 62. But if Miles Turner sits, then Sabonis will likely be the highest, if not second or third highest owned player on the slate. So the thing is, though, if Turner plays, and let's say this game stays close, right? I don't know how I can how many minutes are you going to give to Sabonis, given that, outside of last game where Turner went out with an injury and then for a little while, how many minutes can Sabonis has not been seeing a lot of run?
Yeah, I have Turner at 31. I have Sabonis at 25.
Right. And that's about where I would put him, 24, 25 minutes. What about
and then obviously just don't play them together.
Right. The Pacers, you had mentioned to me the other day, I think it was Saturday night. You couldn't believe how, low owned all of the Pacers were, with people thinking that would you say that they don't need to score to blow out Cleveland? They do routinely go overlooked. Turner being one of them. Any other interest you have here in guys like Collison or Bojan Bogdanovic, Thaddeus Young?
It's pretty much the same spot that I've been in with the Pacers, where Turner's my favorite guy, and then I still like Young and Collison, Bogdanovic, all these guys that benefit without Oladipo and are playing pretty big minutes. They come in behind Young for me, but at low $6,000 or high $5,000 price tags, there is still plenty of upside for them in a pretty favorable matchup against Charlotte. It's unlikely that you get big games from all of them. Doesn't project as a very fast-paced game, but Thad Young sees an assist percentage increase and a usage increase without Oladipo. Collison sees the bump in assist percentage. Bogdanovic sees a nice spike in usage. So the opportunity is certainly there for these guys, and they obviously play less valuable positions than Turner does. So I would not necessarily be prioritizing them if I'm single entering or playing 3 max, but they are guys that, assuming they come in at low ownership, I'll probably be a little bit over the field on in 150 max.
Yep. Is it a slower paced Charlotte team? Sure. Is it a game that we don't expect to see, astronomical scoring? Sure. But with Oladipo off the court, there's always opportunity for one or two of these guys to put up really strong numbers, because there's no real high usage players on this team to take away all of that. shot volume. And I mean, yeah, Turner being one of the guys I prefer most, but I'm with you. These other guys are definitely solid secondary plays. What about the Charlotte Hornets?
Much less interest there for me. Indiana, obviously, a very good defensive team. You have Kemba, who has Cody Zeller back, which I like. The price tag is pretty quickly rising, though. It's an appealing spot, and there's just a ton of good mid-range plays on this slate to where it's tough for me to prioritize Kemba. It's tough for me to really get to much. It's worth pointing out that Marvin Williams is still 4,500 on DraftKings, playing like 40 or 34 minutes a game, getting plenty of time at center. Last game we saw a combined 30 minutes from Cody Zeller and Bismack Biyombo, with the rest going to Marvin Williams. So it's still a pretty appealing spot for him. I know this morning we had him projected for really high ownership. He's another guy where if he's really popular, I'm fine getting some, but being underweight and then just pivoting to some other guys because he's just not that consistent of a player. But, obviously, if you're taking ownership out of it, having a 4,500 guy playing 18 minutes at center who on DraftKings is small forward eligible is pretty appealing.
All right. Yeah, I can. How many minutes did you say?
34.
Oh, I thought you said playing 18 minutes. Like that doesn't.
I said 18 at center.
Oh, got it. Yeah. I'll tell you what, he's getting 35 minutes, every night, almost every night, unless he's in foul trouble. And you don't need to be a great per minute guy to be perfectly fine at that price point.
Yep.
I'm with you there. 4,500. What's he, 55 on FanDuel, I think?
I don't have it in front of me.
Power forward eligible, so that a little bit less appealing there. Any interest? We had people talking about Cody Zeller in chat. Jeremy Lamb's coming off of a big game in a predictably strong spot against the Atlanta Hawks. Anybody else here?
Yeah, I mean, Lamb's still cheap enough where he's fine if you get some, but it's not a priority. Zeller, it's kind of the same boat, except for he also is a center. And if you're going to go cheap at center, I think I'd rather just go with Zubats. I think he's the higher upside play out of the two. So I'd be pretty surprised if I get much Zeller here.
Yeah, I prefer Zubats as well. Particularly on if you need a cheap center on FanDuel, Zubats is 3,900, where pretty much centers are always priced up. I mean, Zeller's 54, Zubats is 39. I don't even think there's much of a conversation to be had there, especially given that while Zeller, is not a terrible fantasy producer, he is still not exactly someone that you expect to give you more than 25 fantasy points in 25 minutes. And it's not a perfect matchup if Miles Turner plays. It's actually less than ideal. All right, let's talk about the Pistons and the Washington Wizards. Pistons 5.5-point favorites at home, 224.5 point total. We've got Drummond at 89 on DraftKings and 10.6 on FanDuel. We got Blake Griffin at 9,000 on DraftKings and on FanDuel. So he's $1,600 cheaper than Drummond on FanDuel. Obviously different positions. And then Reggie Jackson, who has been playing pretty well, but mind you, Ish Smith is active. Reggie Jackson, $5,600 on DraftKings and on FanDuel. He's weighing in at ridiculous $6,800. What are you doing with the Pistons in this home tilt with the Washington Wizards?
I love the front court here. The FanDuel price on Drummond obviously is pretty tough, especially when you don't get a bonus there either. Makes it a little bit less appealing in that regard too. So not as excited about him on FanDuel, but at 8,900 on DraftKings, going against a Washington front court that has struggled to rebound all season long. And while I think Bobby Portis improves their rebounding overall, he's not the kind of guy that I expect to really slow down Andre Drummond here. One of the best offensive rebounds and best overall rebounds in basketball, has a huge size advantage on everyone in this Washington front court. It's kind of tough to see Jan, even though it's the kind of spot where we've seen Scott Brooks go to Mahinmi. It's just kind of weird. It's kind of tough to find minutes for him here because it would mean really taking minutes from one of the four, actually productive front court guys that they have. So I'm assuming that Washington just goes with, Bryant, Green, and Portis here, and that Drummond just has a huge advantage against all these guys. So it's really tough for me not to like Drummond. It's a deep position, but it wouldn't be surprising at all to see like a 20 and 15 game or something like that from Drummond here. And then Blake, again, just not a good Washington defense, a pace up spot for Detroit, a ton of usage for Blake, good enough rebounding numbers and a ton of assists to where, I think he's cheap enough that he comes in as a really good play.
Shit, I wouldn't be surprised to see a 2020 game from Drummond here.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's not that hard in this spot. I mean, there's no question that he has 100% the skill set in this specific matchup against an undersized front court. Even if Bryant were to play more minutes, he still has a distinct advantage here. I'm with you, but I will say on FanDuel, I'll take a Karl Anthony Towns at 600 more, or probably go down. That's a bit rich at 10-6, especially given the price points of guys like Jokic and Towns. I can't get there as easy, but on DraftKings, 8,900 is really, really appealing. That's about it for Detroit for me. I don't think Reggie Jackson plays, 30 minutes here. So
Wait, how many minutes do you have Jackson at?
Let me see. What do you have him at? Like 33?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have him. 1 second here. I have Reggie at 29. I don't. Here's the thing, when it comes, and I could definitely be wrong here, but 2, 4, 8. Let me pull something up here. So with Ish Smith back, I just think there's a lot more risk that Reggie Jackson sees less minutes than when Ish Smith is out, and he's missed a couple of games for rest purposes. So it's obviously possible that Jackson gets up there, but I just don't feel as comfortable when Ish Smith is healthy and backing him up.
Yeah, I cut him to 30. I realized I'd misread his fourth quarter on Popcorn Machine too.
Okay. Yeah,
which I also did this morning and then forgot again.
29 to 30 for me is perfectly fine, but I try and be a little bit more conservative with Reggie because at that price and his, a guy like him with the per minute production, which is, modest at best, I really need 33, 35 from it. If I'm getting 33, 35 minutes from Reggie Jackson, I get it's Washington. Like I don't think 5,600 on DraftKings is bad. I really don't. So I should point that out. But I don't have him at 33 or 35 minutes, which makes him a little bit less appealing. If Ish Smith was out, I would have him there, and that would make him a lot more interesting of a play. But if you're high on Jackson, by all means, I'm happy to hear it.
No, I'm not. I just thought I had him at more minutes than you, but I really don't.
What, 1 more minute? Yeah. Let's move to Washington. Unless you want to talk about what this rotation looks like at the wing with Reggie Bullock gone, but I can't imagine it's something.
Yeah, I mean,
chomping at
with Wayne Ellington. No, with Wayne Ellington stepping in, it's kind of to be determined, I guess. Like, I think he ends up being the starter eventually. I don't know that that's tonight. Right now, I have him at 24 minutes. I have Kennard at 24. I have like everyone else on the team at 18. It's just a bunch of stuff I don't think I'll end up getting to.
Yeah, and Dwayne Casey used 13 players last game. His bench was Luke Kennard, 28 minutes. Ish Smith, 18 minutes. Thon Maker played 8. Kerry Thomas played 20. Pachulia played 12. Glenn Robinson played 14. Calderon played 3. And dude, I think I can't remember how to pronounce it now. It's gonna drive me nuts. Mikhailuk?
Yeah, Mikhailuk. I think it's Mikhailuk.
I think you're right. It is. It's got to be HAI Mikhailuk. He played like 10 minutes or something. So I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and I have no reason to try and pick out of a hat who's going to play more minutes and probably give me 0.7 fantasy points per minute. No thanks. I think with Washington, you and I have a bit of a disagreement in terms of front court minutes. So let's talk about this. Jabari Parker started the second half for the injured Jeff Green last time out. I didn't think Jeff Green, who was day-to-day, was going to play, but then he went through shoot-around. So today he went through shoot-around. So as of now, I'm going to have to say that right now I'm projecting him to be active. Let's hear what you've got. We'll start with the front court, and then, of course, we'll talk about Randall and McRae and that backcourt with Satoransky sideline.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on Green. I didn't think he was going to play either, but since he went through shoot-around, I have him in. And if he does play, I really lose a lot of interest in the Washington front court, excluding Jabari Parker on FanDuel, where I don't care what Jeff Green does. He's 3,900 in a small forward. But where he's priced reasonably at 56 on DraftKings. You have, Portis at 63. You have Green at 52. You have Bryant at 52. I really lose a lot of interest in these guys because it just gets really tough to find minutes for all of them. I have Bryant projected for 18 minutes. I have Portis picking up 26. If you look at Washington's last game against Chicago, before the Green injury in the first half, or based on the first half, Portis was on pace for like 22 minutes, which obviously is concerning. But even, assuming that he gets a little bit more than that, I have him at 26 if Green's in. Green played 26 in the first full game with these guys, and then that leaves 26 minutes for Jabari Parker, assuming that we're not getting any Jabari Parker at the 3 or Jeff Green at the 3. It just makes it so while I like all 3 guys on a permanent basis, the price tag is high enough and the slate's big enough where I'm not really getting to them.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean Parker on FanDuel, different story here. $3,900. He's $400 above the minimum. I mean, if Parker was playing 23 minutes, I would still, have interest in him at that price. But
yep.
So my thing is, we've seen, coaches do a lot of strange things when they're facing this Detroit front court. Now, that's not to say that, Scott Brooks has all that many alternatives in terms of going big or not. And I don't expect Thomas Bryant to play, huge minutes here either, especially given what we've seen in 2 games since Portis and Parker came over. But unlike you, I wouldn't be surprised to see Parker play close to 30 minutes here off the bench.
But so whose minutes is he taking?
I wouldn't be surprised to see Jeff Green see significantly less run. Now, granted, look, you say, well, yeah, Jeff Green was playing so many minutes. He was, but much of that was by default. There weren't really many alternatives there. And if Jeff Green plays a few fewer minutes than that, it's not that hard for Parker to get there. But what do you say? You have the 3 of them at 26 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's probably more reasonable. I just think if any of them were to see additional run here, it would be Parker, probably over Portis and over Green. So it wouldn't be crazy to see him take a minute here, a minute there, and get up to around 30. But obviously, just on FanDuel and DraftKings, it's a totally different play. We'll see, though. We'll see what they do against this Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond front court. What about Randall, Adam?
I mean, I don't expect him to be all that productive. I do expect him to play a lot of minutes, and he's I'm assuming he is minimum on FanDuel. He's 33 on DraftKings. So it clearly stands out as a good point per dollar value play. In cash, I really can't imagine not having him. In tournaments, I assume I'll have a lot just because it opens up the mid-range and the expensive guys that I like on this slate. I projected him for 32 minutes. I went through and combined basically his rates with and without Beal on the floor, assuming that he's going to play about 2/3 of his minutes with Beal and about 1/3 without. Because I think they probably stagger him and Beal so that Beal gets the backup point guard minutes. So, I mean, I have Randall projected for like 23 DraftKings points in his 32 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. It looks as if we have basically identical minute projections. Give me your minute projections for Beal, Randall, and McRae.
38 for Beal, 32 for Randall, 18 for McRae.
Oh, okay. So where are you said you expect Beal to play the backup point guard minutes. And then I'm assuming Wes Johnson just gets a decent amount of run at the 2 is what you have? Yeah,
I have Wes Johnson picking up 8 minutes at the 2 because in that first game when he joined the team, we actually saw a Satoransky, Johnson, Ariza, Parker, Portis lineup for a little bit in the second quarter. So I assume that they'll give him some minutes there instead of playing McRae like 24 or 26.
Yeah, that would make sense. And how many do you have Wes Johnson at right now?
20.
Okay, and he played 20 last game as well. All right, that makes sense. I could see McRae playing a few more minutes, but so you've got 96 minutes. You got 96 minutes between the 2 positions. But really, I'd say, projecting Beal at 38, reasonable, obviously. Wouldn't be surprised if he played 40 here, of course. And then Randall, 30, 32 minutes seems to be the most obvious projection. You said you have him around, I think you said 23 DraftKings points. And that makes sense. I'll say this much. Interestingly, with Randall, he's not a high per minute guy, but with it being so cheap, it doesn't matter. If you look at his per 36s recently, and I point this out because it shows that he actually has had some involvement in the offense. He averaging almost 9 potential assists and 73 touches per 36 over his last 8 games. You can't always prorate that out, but I did. And his average time of possession is less than only Bradley Beal and Thomas Satoransky, meaning that when he's on the court, I don't expect him just to stand there. So while he's not a high volume, shooter, I still think he's going to have some opportunities here. And that's kind of all that matters at this price point.
Yeah, he's actually coming off a pretty good game too, where he kind of forced his way onto the floor, played like 25 minutes, a lot of which were alongside Satoransky.
Right. And I guess that'll do. Anything else here for Washington you want to talk about?
I like Beal. I like him a lot more than I did this morning because of Satoransky being out. That just puts the ball in his hands even more. He's played 294 minutes without either of Satoransky or Wall on the floor this year. 1.42 DraftKings points per minute, a 32.5% usage rate, a little over a 30% assist percentage. I went ahead and split up his minutes and projected him to play the backup point minutes and then play the rest alongside Randall. And I ended up getting him up to about a little over 52 DraftKings points in his 38 minutes. So I like him a lot more than I did on the show this morning.
Okay. I guess we can move on to the next one here. Still got a bunch to go. Let's talk Toronto and Brooklyn. We got the Toronto Raptors at home hosting the Brooklyn Nets. We talked about this a lot, Adam, but Brooklyn playing at a very significantly elevated pace over the last 30 days, leading the league in pace of play. They're 10-point dogs, though, facing a quality Raptors defense, 226.5 total. And Fred VanVleet looks to be out for a few weeks here. The interesting thing, though, is if you were to look at, Kyle Lowry's numbers with VanVleet on and off, really, if Leonard's out there, as long as Leonard's out there, it doesn't really make much of a difference.
Right. The only reason I think that Lowry being out could be, or not Lowry, VanVleet being out could really have an impact on Lowry is, for one, maybe he gets an extra minute or two, but also I don't think it would be surprising now to see him and Leonard have their minutes staggered, because the alternative is either that you have Siakam play with the second unit and play point guard, or you have, McCall or Jordan Lloyd play point for the second unit. So I don't think it would be surprising to see Lowry run with the second unit here, which would give him, a couple of extra points in usage and assist percentage, but still, wouldn't make him a priority for me. It would just make him a little bit more appealing.
Right. Yeah. 72 on DraftKings is fine. 8,200 for Lowry on FanDuel. I'm all right getting away from that. He only played 6 minutes, I think it was, with Gasol in his debut. And obviously, the more he's on the court with Gasol, actually, the less I like him, meaning Lowry. I guess we'll continue to assume that Gasol will play off the bench. Played, 18 and a half minutes last game. Ibaka, surprisingly, started. Not surprising that he started, but still got 29 minutes. What do you expect to see with these minutes? Oh, by the way, Ellington is playing, and he's going to play off the bench. Damari Carroll is out. And Kevin Love's going to play more than last game, but remain on a limit as we expected. Just a little housekeeping there for those of you that are just tuning in. With the Marc Gasol minutes, though, what do you expect to see here after the first game with Nick Nurse playing him 19 minutes off the bench?
Yeah, I think that what you see eventually happen is that it kind of trends towards a timeshare between him and Ibaka. So for today, I have Ibaka at 26. I have Gasol at 22. That's really based on anything other than assuming that Gasol picks up a few extra minutes in his second game with the team. So yeah, I think you see I still think you see 48 minutes split between Ibaka and Gasol.
Right. It would make sense. But tonight, what do you see in terms of the timeshare? Because Serge Ibaka, or really whoever gets the majority of minutes at center, is in a really favorable position against Brooklyn. I just get a little bit concerned knowing that a talented player like Gasol is breathing down Ibaka's neck.
Right. Yeah. I gave Ibaka 26 here. I gave Gasol the other 22.
Right. Yeah. I don't think Gasol plays 18 minutes again, but I also don't think he plays 30. 22 sounds about right. Do you have any interest in Kawhi Leonard, who's 9,100 on DraftKings and 9,900 on FanDuel?
99 on FanDuel seems pretty nice. Obviously, it's I guess a little bit tougher than normal because you have one small forward slot going to Jabari Parker, so it's not as useful as normal. 9,100 on DraftKings in a vacuum is fine, but again, when you start comparing across positions, uh, I'd rather play like Beal or Luca, who obviously we haven't talked about yet. Paul George, I'd rather play. So again, I doubt that I get much Kawhi in tournaments. I almost never do.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I asked you with pretty much an answer in mind. I'm the same way. I look, like you said, in a vacuum, it's not bad. Once you start comparing him to other players, it gets more difficult. Do you want to talk about Brooklyn here,
Sure.
or you want to continue with Toronto? You got anybody else?
Oh, I mean, I like Siakam to an extent, but nothing from Toronto. I don't expect anything from Toronto to be a priority for me.
D'Angelo Russell 7,800 on DraftKings, so I think it's reasonable to say that that the matchup's baked into his salary. Karis LeVert returned. You know, so, Alan Crabbe's been back for 2 games. Russell got up 20 plus shots in both of those. Since Dinwiddie's been out, Russell has been, you know, pretty decent, right? Like you're still getting 32% usage, 38% assists, 1.25 fantasy points per minute. I obviously worry that once LeVert and Crabbe are integrated back into their normal roles, that'll be a concern. But so what are your thoughts on Russell against this Toronto team at his $7,800 tag?
I like him in tournaments to an extent. It's still a really, really deep slate again, where there's a lot of high upside plays, but there's not really any question that he can outperform a $7,800 price tag really easily, regardless of matchup. We've seen him do it in tough spots this year. If I remember right, I think he's actually done it against Toronto. I know he's done it against Boston. He's just really good at scoring, and you should get around 33 minutes out of him. So a secondary play for me, but also my favorite play from the Nets.
Right. Me too. You're not prioritizing him here. It's still a tougher spot, but with $7,800, it's very clear that he's capable of doing big things. As you pointed out, though, played 27 minutes against Toronto on the 11th of January. He had 24 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, and a steal. So a solid effort in 27 minutes in a blowout. And then against them, they beat him earlier this year when they went on that 8-game win streak. And he played 32 minutes, 29 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on 13 for 22 shooting. So yeah, this matchup has not kept him from producing. Is there anyone else for Brooklyn that stands out to you at all? The only guy I would throw out, I'd say, hey, Ed Davis, if he plays 21 minutes, always has enough upside. He's $600 above the minimum. But aside from that, and even that, there really isn't much here outside of D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, I mean, with Carroll out, I'm trying to figure out if I can get a few more minutes for Hollis Jefferson at 3,700 or a few more minutes for Napier at 4,400. But regardless, it's not anything that I would do with a lot of confidence now that LeVert and Crabbe are back. We know Atkinson will just run a million guys through these, wing minutes. So you could see, guys like Pinson pick up enough minutes to be to take value away from those guys. It's really Russell, and then if you wanted to take a shot on a cheap Jared Allen or Ed Davis, I think it's fine.
All right. I'm with you. I have no problem moving on from this one. Let's talk about the Bucks and the Bulls. Right now, the Milwaukee Bucks are favored by 11.5 points, 227.5 total. Coming off of a rough loss without Giannis Antetokounmpo, lost by 20 points to Orlando. Yeah, he means a little bit to this team. He's back for this one. There was nothing to worry about anyway. What do you have, like right knee soreness? Probably just rest. But they are double-digit favorites, and they are facing a Bulls team that made a couple acquisitions. You've got Otto Porter, but still slow pace, bad defense. What do you have here for Milwaukee? Is there anyone that stands out to you?
Bledsoe more than anyone. Giannis, obviously is the best player and all that. It's a great spot for him and everything. But again, you're talking about a superstar that probably plays like 34 minutes, even if it's competitive, and there's no guarantee it is. I would just rather get to guys like Harden or Westbrook or Jokic or Towns than Giannis here. Bledsoe has been incredibly good lately. He's got a good matchup here against Chicago. He's still reasonably priced. The minutes have been really low, but again, they've just been in a lot of blowouts. If this game is competitive through most of the fourth quarter, I think that you get around 30 minutes from Bledsoe. I have him projected for right around 40 DraftKings points. He's the guy that I think I probably get the most of from Milwaukee. There are a couple of guys around him that I think I get more of, like actually Zach LaVine from the other side, like Chris Paul from Houston. But I think that Bledsoe's in a pretty good spot.
All right. Yeah, wasn't getting too much for Milwaukee. Giannis obviously in a perfectly fine spot. Take nothing away from it. How much I land on is yet to be seen. I don't expect it to be too much, and we'll talk about that with some games coming up and players that I really do like. Bledsoe, yeah, he's been better. He's been really solid. He'd probably be the one guy here. I mean, Middleton, like a 6,400 on DraftKings, but it's so easy to get away from Middleton with guys that are priced around him, and he just honestly has not been good enough for me to worry about not getting Middleton against Chicago. On the Bulls side, Markkanen's been spectacular recently. His rebounding is through the roof. I love seeing that Markkanen is putting up monster rebounding totals because it really complements his scoring. And not only is he playing big minutes, but you look at his point totals, 30, 30, 31, 20. He continues to score, continues to rebound well. His price is coming up. I mean, we were rostering him at $6,900 last week. So, it's $7,900 on DraftKings and $83 on FanDuel. He's getting up there. I don't think it's unreasonable. Now, it's a tough matchup. Definitely, it is a pace-up spot, but a very difficult matchup. And then aside from him, we're talking about the usual suspects that continue to go underpriced, like Zach LaVine and Chris Dunn. Otto Porter has been, wildly pedestrian in his first two games with the Bulls, 34 minutes in both, and well under a fantasy point per minute. Go ahead and talk to me about this Bulls squad.
It's not a whole lot that I like here. LaVine on DraftKings, I like him much less on FanDuel, where he's a full $1,000 more expensive. Price tag on DraftKings is just really nice, though. I mean, it's a Milwaukee team. Been good defensively, but it is a pace-up spot. LaVine is playing big minutes in competitive games. He has a 30.9% usage rate over the last month without either one of Parker or Portis on the floor. Josh and I talked about it this morning, but it's easy to overlook since they were both coming off the bench. But Otto Porter taking minutes that Bobby Portis and Parker were playing is a huge drop in usage rate, him compared to those guys. So it's not surprising that you see an uptick for LaVine and for Markkanen and Dunn coming in around 20% now too. So I like LaVine's DraftKings price. I like Markkanen, not as much as LaVine on DraftKings, but this is a game where I expect a lot of Markkanen at center again. We saw about 30 combined minutes last game from Lopez and Felicio against a small Washington team. This is a small Milwaukee team where I think you see very similar. So plenty of rebounding opportunities again for Markkanen. Not a ton of interest in Porter. The price tag's nice for someone playing 34 minutes. It's a reasonable matchup as far as, Porter's job is basically to knock down three-pointers when he gets the ball. And Milwaukee has allowed the highest frequency of three-point attempts this year. They have struggled to defend against threes in particular as well. The problem with Porter, I think this is a similar situation to when he was playing with Wall and Beal in Washington, where he doesn't need to create anything in this offense. He's going to just knock down shots when he gets the ball. So it kind of caps his upside a bit.
It does. And one of the big things is to kind of add on what you're saying. When it comes to Otto Porter, what's it going to take for Porter to have a really strong game? Now, you're playing alongside a guy like Markkanen who's, gobbling up a ton of rebounds. You have 6 rebounds in 68 minutes in 2 games with the Bulls. You're not relied upon at all to facilitate. LaVine can do that. Dunn can do it better. And then in terms of scoring, yeah, there's going to be games where you get some shots up, but in order for Porter to really get it done, you're going to need a very efficient shooting game where he comes in with like 25 real points. And I'm talking about to have, the tournament upside you're looking for.
Right. You need that. You need one of those games where he grabs like 5 steals or where 10 rebounds just happen to bounce right to him.
Right. He needs to fall face first into some lucky peripherals is what he needs to do.
Right.
Because outside of that, he's just not relied upon for anything else. And it's like you said, playing alongside Wall and Beal might not be as extreme comparing them to, Dunn and Levine, but there also wasn't a Lauri Markkanen in Washington either. So there's a lot of mouths to feed here, whether it be rebounding, scoring, or facilitating. And it takes some shine off of Porter for sure. The only, silver lining is that he's $5,700, which really isn't that bad. 67 on FanDuel. You want to keep talking about this one, or shall we move on to the Clippers and the Timberwolves?
Clippers, Timberwolves.
All right, let's do it. We got the Timberwolves 4-point favorites, 232 total. Jeff Green is available to play as expected, and there's that news. So good timing on that. Jeff Green will play. Minnesota 4-point favorites. We got ourselves a 232 total. And, well, I'll tell you what. Karl Anthony Towns against the Clippers to me is in a spot that I really like. $10,000 on DraftKings. He's had a couple disappointing games lately, but that's not going to really keep me away. I know Derrick Rose is expected back, and Wiggins is questionable, but Zubac's in the starting lineup for the Clippers really does not concern me much. I mean, if you just look at per 36s compared to Marcin Gortat, he might block shots at a slightly higher rate, but for his size, he's a pedestrian rebounder. This isn't to say I don't like Zubac at his price, but in terms of defense, not worried about him dominating the boards. He just doesn't really have any explosiveness as a defender. So Towns in the pick and roll and away from the basket should be able to carve him up. And then with Montrezl Harrell, you just have a significant size advantage. So 10K flat on Towns. I don't really care who plays for Minnesota. I do like him quite a bit here. And it's a pretty fast-paced Clippers team, highest total of the slate. I like Towns a lot, if you didn't notice. What about you with this Minnesota Timberwolves team?
I also like Towns a lot. Teague and Rose coming back hurts him, but not enough to make me not interested in him in this spot against the Clippers. Right. You see a drop in assist percentage primarily. You also see a drop in usage, but he still gets plenty of usage. He still gets some assists, and he's still clearly the leading rebounder here in a very favorable matchup against the Clippers, playing about 36 minutes in competitive games. So I still, really, really like Towns. Beyond him, still waiting on word about if Teague or Rose are limited. Right now, I have them both in for 28 minutes. I don't have a ton of confidence in that. If that is the case, I think they're reasonable plays. They still don't, jump off the page to me, but they're reasonable plays. If we get word that they're limited more than that, then I really wouldn't have interest. Wiggins, I have in right now for 36 minutes. With Rose and Teague back, I take a little bit away from him. I have him again as like a secondary play here. Same goes for $4,000 Taj Gibson, just in a nice spot. But it's Towns and then a big drop off for me with the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I won't even follow up on that because it's exactly what I would have said. It's exactly what I talked about in the deep dive today. So we're on the same page there. 10K flat Towns, though, is just really appealing to me. On the other side, you've got Zubac, who I expect to play 23, 24 minutes here. On a per minute basis, he's perfectly fine. No issues with that at all. And then Gallinari, Adam, played 29 minutes in their first game with Harris out. They erased a 28-point deficit against Boston. Of course, Kyrie Irving got hurt in the second quarter, but still won that game in Boston. And he only got up 10 shots in that one. Sure, he got to the line. He attempted 7 free throws. But hearing a lot of chatter about Danilo Gallinari here. Where are you at on him? He's 6K on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, we're getting old Danilo at 7K flat.
I like him a lot, especially the DraftKings price tag. Again, this is a weird slate on FanDuel in that you have one small forward spot locked up. So it's not like small forwards aren't as appealing as normal. I still think he's fine there. But 6K on DraftKings, I think is just too cheap. We saw like 20 minutes in the first game and then 29 last game. I have him at 33 here. He has a 25% usage rate without Harris on the floor this season. He's been productive on a per minute basis all season long, regardless of who's on the floor with him. It's not a bad matchup against Minnesota. I think that I would much rather play Gallinari than Parker or Porter in a similar price spot.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. He hasn't played a lot of minutes with Harris off this year. I think he's like 0.99 fantasy points per minute, 25, 26% usage. That's about what I expect from Gallo. I mean, the truth is you could take all of the shooters off this team, and you're still not going to get Gallo with like a 35% usage rate. It's not going to happen. But if you're getting him at good minutes in a very favorable spot, I mean, this is a way more appealing matchup than Boston. There's no question. So Gallinari, what do you have? I have him at 33 minutes right now. What about you?
33. Yeah, I'm at 33 also.
Right. So 33 minutes from Gallo here is pretty nice. Do I love him? I don't love him. I'd mentioned today that a lot of it for me would come down to ownership. And the reason I say that with Gallo is because he's not a guy I really worry about destroying me if I don't play him. He's just very rare that you're going to see like a 30-point, 10 rebound double from Gallo. Lock it in. But yeah, seriously. He's not coming in at ridiculous ownership here. I don't really have much of an issue. How about the rest of the Clippers?
Yeah, so Lou Williams, I think, is interesting as a tournament play. Zach LaVine, he's similar price to LaVine on DraftKings. Actually, he's the same price as LaVine on DraftKings. I have LaVine projected higher. I prefer LaVine, but I don't think that's really a hot take at all. Lou Williams played 28 minutes last game. I think that we continue to see minutes in that range. I think that we probably don't see a whole lot more of the 32 to 34 minutes that we were seeing when this team was really shorthanded. But while they do have more bodies now, they really didn't bring in any more high usage guys like Garrett Temple, Landry Shamet, JaMychal Green. These aren't guys that are going to be taking the ball from Lou Williams when he's on the floor. He's played 634 minutes without Harris this year. He's averaged 1.36 points per minute with almost a 35% usage rate. I think that he's a pretty high upside tournament play here. It's not a cash game play for me because I think that you get more minutes from similarly priced guys, but I do like Williams. And then Zubats is, 4K on DraftKings where you can roster two centers. You mentioned earlier he's 39 on FanDuel. I don't love it on FanDuel just because of the raw points and the fact that you already have a free square in Jabari Parker. You can drop a guy. I want raw points at center here, but on DraftKings where you can roster two of them, so the opportunity cost isn't as high, I think that Zubats is a perfectly fine play. I think that you get probably a combined like 54 minutes from him and Harrell against this bigger front court.
Right, for sure. Keep in mind too, with that last game, somebody like Landry Shamet, when you're looking at minutes played and production, now he ended up playing 27 minutes. He played the final 15 minutes of that game. I don't expect him to get there today. I will say that he played in the first half, so he played about 13 minutes, 12, around 12 minutes. So I put him around 24 minutes here. The big thing though is that bench closed out the game outside of Beverly and Gallo. You had Harrell, that's expected, Lou Williams and Shamet. So the two of those guys you see closing games out quite often, but Landry Shamet, I wouldn't be surprised to see him not play 15 straight minutes to close out the game. He scored 13 points in the fourth quarter and played a big hand in them coming back from that big deficit against Boston.
Yeah, I mean, when guys like Shamet are making every single shot that they take, coaches normally leave them in.
Exactly. So I'd put him around 23 minutes today. I would have expected him to come back off with 5 minutes remaining in that game. Anyway, we can keep moving here. This Clippers team's kind of interesting though, because there's so many different ways Doc Rivers can go. There's no more Avery Bradley, no more Tobias Harris. With Lou Williams, it's always uncertain. I think you probably get 28 minutes from him here. And then Montrezl Harrell, it's kind of funny how quickly where do you have him projected at in terms of priority? Do you have him being somebody that you like a lot tonight?
Harrell?
Mm-hmm.
I have him fourth.
If you mentioned him, I'm sorry, I was reading chat.
No, it's fine. I have him fourth amongst the Clippers. Like I have Gallo, Williams, Zubats, and then Harrell. I have him at 30 minutes.
Okay, he's fizzled out a bit. Not necessarily from a production standpoint, that a little bit, but his price came up so quickly that it was tough to really keep pace with that. So I'm with you. I don't have a ton of interest there. And you're talking about center. I'd rather play a Miles Turner, who's playing. And at power forward, you have plenty of options as well. All right, Adam, we got to keep it going here. Houston and the Dallas Mavericks. We've got Houston double-digit favorites. Mavericks on the second leg of a back-to-back, coming off of a big 1-point win over the Portland Trailblazers yesterday. So impressive game from them. But now they play their second of a back-to-back in Houston, 10.5-point dogs with a 225 total. Let's kick it off with Houston, and let me ask you about James Harden. His last 2 games, he hadn't finished with 1 assist or less in any games this year. Now he's done so twice in a row. Not saying that happens again today, but there is no question that Chris Paul limits his assist upside when he's out there, even though D'Antoni does a quality job of staggering them. So his prices come down, and he'll still get big minutes. Where are you at on this backcourt starting with Harden?
Still don't really have interest in Harden at 13-3 on FanDuel. The scoring doesn't favor him. The position's deep enough to where I don't think you need to pay all the way up. I have more interest on DraftKings where he's down to 12K. But even there, I think that there are enough lower or cheaper guys with upside that I prefer. Even on his team, you have Chris Paul at 6,900, who I like more than Harden when you factor in price, or at least similarly to Harden. So it's not that Harden's a priority for me at that price tag on this slate. You have Russell Westbrook for cheaper also. So if I'm going to play him, it would be on DraftKings, but I expect that I just won't really end up with a whole lot of Harden here.
Yeah, me neither. 12K is definitely down on DraftKings from where he was at, 13.8 not long ago. But Chris Paul being back and playing 35 minutes last game, it just means that there's a few more minutes that Harden isn't playing with Paul off the court. And I don't like that. Yeah. What about Paul? How much?
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I mentioned him earlier in the show.
Yeah, no, I like him a lot. I mean, he played 34 minutes last game. That's what I have him projected for here. It's a perfectly fine spot against the Mavericks. If you project basically a third of his minutes to be without Harden and the rest to be with Harden, and you look at his numbers this season without Capella or Melo on the floor, you're getting about a 23.5% usage rate and your 32% assist percentage. I have him projected for well over a fantasy point per minute here, and I think that the price tag just really leaves a lot of upside.
Anything else on the rest of this Rockets team?
It really drops off from that point. I think Fareed's fine. I think Gordon's fine at a cheap price tag, but certainly not guys that I plan on having a lot of.
Yeah, me neither. Kenneth Fareed's been productive enough. He's not ridiculously overpriced. He's getting 30 or more minutes a game. He's a +1 per minute guy. I just don't think you need to get there today. On the Dallas side, Luka Doncic has come down to 87 on DraftKings, Adam. He's had a couple ugly games mixed in over the past week or two, but on the whole, $8,700 for a guy like Doncic is pretty wild, given that he's so much cheaper than, or not so much, but $500 less expensive than Kemba Walker, less expensive than Griffin and Bradley Beal, despite some wild good production, wildly good.
Yeah, I mean, I think his price tag is at a point where, you can bring up blowouts if you want. You can bring up that it's a back-to-back, it's a 3 and 4. Like, you can bring up a lot of things, kind of outside of stats and rates to argue against Luka here. But I think that price tag factors it all in. Like, assuming this game stays close, you're looking at mid-30s in minutes from a guy who's averaging over 1.4 fantasy points per minute over the last month. He doesn't have Dennis Smith Jr. anymore. The assist percentage is pushing 40% now to go along with about a 13% rebounding percentage and a 34% usage rate. He's just playing out of his mind, and it's not a bad matchup against Houston as long as Dallas can stay in this game. So I love the price tag on Luka.
Me too. You're right. There are some factors outside or non-statistical factors that make you second guess it. But number one, he's pretty young, so I think he can overcome the back-to-back and the 3 games in 4 days. But really, it all comes down to being $8,700. It's tough to get away from that. Tim Hardaway, another kind of interesting case study here, Adam. 27% usage rate since joining the Mavs, second to Doncic. And while his per minute production's been okay, 0.9, he played 32 minutes yesterday, which was nice to see in the starting lineup. And half of those minutes came with Doncic off. So Carlisle is, as we've talked about it, knows that he needs one of them on the floor, which is kind of interesting. And even with Doncic on, he's got 22% usage. So it's not like he's ignored entirely, 34% with him off. What do you make of Tim Hardaway here?
I really like the DraftKings price tag. I really wish that it would increase so I could stop rostering him. But
I know.
with where it's at, I mean, he's got a 26.5% usage rate since joining Dallas. That's basically in line with what we were seeing in New York before the emergence of, Moutier, Burke, Cantor, and Hardaway. I think just not really giving a shit anymore. So I expect him to, kind of hang out in that usage range, and it gives him plenty of upside here in a favorable matchup. So 5K, I think, is just too cheap of a price tag. He's another guy, I'd rather go to him than go to Jabari or go to Porter.
Anybody else for Dallas?
If you get some really cheap Trey Burke hoping for a minute's bounce back, or some really cheap Dorian Finney-Smith, it's fine, but I don't plan on having a lot of it.
All right. Hey, by the way, on February 15th, we are celebrating our first anniversary here at awesomemode.com. Get hyped. I'll tell you what, it's been pretty awesome because the deeper dive and awesomemode.com continues to grow, and it's because of you guys. I don't say that to kiss ass. Really, it's true. And we want to thank you guys out there for your support over the first year. And in doing so, we're giving away an all-access annual membership, $700 value to one loyal viewer of our YouTube channel. It's very simple. All you have to do to be entered into this sweepstakes is like the video and leave a comment. Adam, what should the comment be? Come on, you're a creative guy. Come on, you're always creative on Twitter.
Yeah, you caught me completely off guard with that one.
And that's what I do.
Yeah, I have no idea.
All right, sounds good. How about? I got a good one. We got a lot of different personalities on here, whether it be Adam or me or Josh or Chris or Dan Stratford or Emac. And by the way, you have to comment in the comment section down below, not in the YouTube comments. Even if you want to do that, it's fine too, but it won't count. What is the most egregious mispronunciation of names from any one of us, whether it's Dan saying Antetokounmpo or Josh's pronunciation of Bojan Bogdanovic? That's right, Josh. I know you're listening to me. Or my pronunciation of Adam's last name, pronunciation.
I went with Mo Wagner earlier this year.
Yeah, I think we both butchered that one.
Yeah.
We both chopped that one up pretty bad. What's the most butchered, egregious mispronunciation of a name that any of us have had here? We'll have some fun with it. Feel free to poke fun of us. So put it down there. You got to like the video and comment afterwards down in the comment section. Adam and I read them all, by the way. Like when we're doing these, we always have a good laugh because they always tend to be some funny ones. So all you got to do is like the video and comment down below. The most egregious mispronunciation of names that you've heard over the last year from any of us at Awesome. It doesn't have to be on the deeper dive. You can also enter a separate contest for an annual all-access pass on our Twitter handle. So go follow Awesemo_com and check the pinned tweet for more info. We'll be announcing the winners on the last live before lock NBA All-Star break on Wednesday, or before the NBA All-Star break, February 13th. So like the video, leave that comment, or check our Twitter handle now for a chance to win one free year of ownership projections, rankings, premium content, everything we have to offer. It's our gift on our anniversary from us to you, our friends and our loyal viewers at awesomemode.com. All right, Adam, let's finish it out here. 2 to go, Portland and OKC. Do you know that Paul George, since the start of 2019, is fourth in DraftKings points per game average?
I did not know that.
In the entire league.
Totally believe it.
Pretty amazing, right? Or I'm sorry, no, third behind Harden and Westbrook. But he's still way cheaper than guys like Harden and Giannis and Westbrook. I'm not saying that he's better than them, but man, he's been awesome.
Yeah, and it does coincide with Billy Donovan's been more aggressive in staggering him and Westbrook's minutes. Yep. Over the last 11 games, you have 1.5 points per minute for George. Part of that's because he's shooting unsustainably well. But even if you account for that, it's still, you expect him to be more productive because he's playing more minutes without Westbrook. So I still love Paul George here. I love Westbrook. Really love both of these guys. I haven't seen an Oklahoma City starting lineup with Grant out, have you?
No, I have not.
I think Schroeder starts.
Yeah. God, Schroeder could start, and then you just see Donovan stagger them a ton because that bench is terrible otherwise.
Right. So on December 28th against Phoenix, Steven Adams was out, but so was Noel. So we saw Grant start at the 5, George slide to the 4, Ferguson to the 3, Schroeder started, Felton took the backup point guard minutes. and played like 11 minutes or whatever. Schroeder played like 39. But so anyway, I think that's what they do with the starting lineup. I have Schroeder at 36 minutes. I cut his usage rate significantly because I expect basically all of those minutes to be alongside Westbrook. But I still have him projected for like 28, 29 DraftKings points
and
at 47.
Abrines is gone too, so you can't even play him at the 2. Yeah,
right.
You can't start him at the 2. Okay. All right. So we got to go quick here. Sorry, we're running out of time, fellas. But Live Before Lock's coming up next. Anything we missed, they'll get to. Give me your plays from this game.
I like Nurkic quite a bit. I think he gets big minutes here, assuming he can stay out of foul trouble. I like Dame Lillard on DraftKings at 8,600, and like I said, I love George and Westbrook on the Oklahoma City side, and I like Schroeder at 4,700. I'm assuming he starts here.
All right, fair enough. By the way, we apologize. Sometimes we just get so into these plays in certain games. We want to give you all the info and research and knowledge that we're learning throughout the day. So please forgive us. We'll close it out with Denver and Miami. The Nuggets, 9.5-point favorites with a 214 total. Waiters expected to be popular, seeing a lot of minutes recently since Tyler Johnson's out. Wayne Ellington's gone too, so you're not going to get minutes there. Go ahead. I'll let you close it out. Not a game I have a ton of interest in unless Millsap plays. I think he's okay on DraftKings. And if he's out, Mason Plumlee. And, of course, Jamal Murray's cheap. But go ahead. It's all you.
Yeah, not a ton of interest here for me either. Really tough, back-to-back spot for Miami. I think that Waiters at 4,100 is fine. I have him projected for 32 minutes. He played 41 last night, 32 the game before that. He comes in as, a perfectly reasonable play for me. Same goes for Whiteside, but center is just so deep that it's really tough to get there. On the other side, I like Jokic a lot. If Millsap's out, I think you get a couple more minutes for Jokic again, playing 35 to 36. Even if he's in, I like Jokic just a little bit more if Millsap's out. I like Jamal Murray, who played 36 minutes last game. He's only 6,300. Not a super appealing spot against Miami, but I think it's too cheap of a price tag for him. Will Barton played 36 minutes last game, which at 5,600 makes him intriguing, at least in tournaments. And then, as you mentioned, Plumlee, if Millsap is out, should get, 30-plus minutes again tonight, starting alongside Jokic.
All right. That'll do it for us. Stick around. Live Before Lock coming up next. As always, we appreciate you guys. Like and comment down below for a chance to win an all-access yearly membership. You know what to do. Most egregious mispronunciation of names over the last year. As always, thanks for watching. Good luck. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive.